Aloha, it is I, the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here.
And I'm Amy Rose here, and we are from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos.
And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not in a good mood.
What's the matter, Sonic?
Well, today we're about to be playing through the next worst Sonic game after the events of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 for both the Xbox 360 / PlayStation 3. Thanks Steve Forms of Mexi did already tackle for that game ever since about a couple of months ago. But as you can tell, we booted up our Wii U because today we're about to be experiencing the worst, if not the worst games ever made, which you probably read the title already, which honestly I'm not really looking forward to it. I think it's mainly because, thanks to Dr. Eggman, did send me a message saying about the fact that, Dear Sonic, would you like to play this game as far as the Mexi Toys community is concerned? Well, as a result, we are playing through a Sonic Boom game on the Wii U, known as Sonic Boom Rise of Loic for the Nintendo Wii U. And obviously this game did first came out in 2014, and as a result, this game did came out along the same time as in the 3DS counterpart called Sonic Boom Shadow Crystal, which plays pretty differently. But even then though, we'll explain more about that and during a future time. But for now, we're about to tackle through the only Sonic Boom game, for right now anyway, for the sake of the films of 2024, and here we are in Sonic Boom Rise of Loic. Oh boy, I'm actually really not looking forward to this though. But usually relatively speaking though for this point, is that many people consider this to be as the worst Sonic games ever made. As I said before, next to the films of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, alongside with Sonic Free Riders, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1, as well as a bunch more. But then again though, we'll talk more about those if we get around onto doing some more bad Sonic games, except for one, which appears to be Sonic Free Riders, because it requires an Xbox 360 Connect in order to able to play it. But from what I've heard about the fact that thankfully you can now able to actually emulate the game without needing to worry about the phone's this god dang Kinect controls. So
Oh, because you involves around you able to move your body to do some tons of tricks and stuff like that, from what I've heard anyway?
Yes, exactly, Amy, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm not gonna able to take my risks for able to actually try to get the game, as well as the Kinect itself. So either way, as you can tell about the fact that on the top left corner, there did say version 1.1.0, which yes indeed, this game did get patched, but not by much, mind you, because as far as I'm aware, much like in Sonic 06 though, basically though is about the fact that this game was basically, well, not only unpolished, but it's also about the fact that this game is filled to the brim with a lot of glitches and stuff like that. In fact, funny story actually, we were originally trying to able to do this game back in 2019, but unfortunately though, that particular playthrough is no longer there anymore, mainly because no matter what though, it's about the fact that we've been overly too negative about it, and on top of all that stuff though, it's about the fact that we attempted able to try to do Sonic Boom Marathon, but unfortunately though, that particular marathon is cancelled due to time constraints, and not to mention though is about the fact that with the memory storage for our phones when it comes to recording certain 3DS games, specifically Sonic Boom Shadow Crystal as well as Sonic Boom Fire and Ice, but unfortunately though is about the fact that those two playthroughs never happened back in Journey Phones of in 2019 basically.
Oh, that's kind of a shame really, because I would have loved to able to actually join with you for this point, but here we are now in 2024 that I've decided to join in with you at long last.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, let's begin, shall we? Well, it looks like I somehow got obliterated by those whole pack of robots, and we somehow jumped back into the previous day, I see.
What's the matter, Sonic? Can't keep up?
You were saying?
I didn't mean that literally. It was a taunt. It's Villainy 101.
Amy, Knuckles, go left!
Give me a sec. I'm on it.
So yeah, let's get started with Sonic Boom Rise of Loic, and right from the start though, is that similar to the forms of how it does in Sonic 06, we got into Mike's speed section. So because of that though, nothing too special I'm afraid, apart from the fact that all we have to do in this part right here is to dodge not only Eggman's missiles, but also objects.
Love these boostrings.
Alright, this is getting old. Let's jump ahead to the part where I ambush you.
Great. Metal Sonic has to show up right when Eggman is springing a surprise attack on us.
Also, I was not expecting to see Metal Sonic make his appearance.
Well, technically speaking though, Amy, is about the fact that this particular game was actually based off from the TV show called Sonic Boom, with the same name, but no matter what though, it's about the fact that with Sonic Boom in mind, that basically it takes place in a different continuity of it. So because of that though, as you can tell, we can able to actually take control of not only Sonic, but as well as Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, with their very interesting redesign for the sake of the forms of Sonic Boom community.
Well, what are you waiting for? After them! Oh, Sonic! You know what's better than an ambush?
An ambush with ice cream?
That sounds delicious. But no! The post-ambush ambush!
Uh-oh.
So I dug up these ancient robots, and it took me forever to figure out how to control them. And then I couldn't have all that effort go to waste unless I'd sick them on you! Try to appreciate all the work I put in as they destroy you. Toodles!
Now, as far as I'm aware, in regards to the forms of the redesigns of not only Sonic, but as well as Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, I think they're fine in my opinion. I mean, it's kind of weird at first glance though, while looking back on Sonic Boom as it is, back in 10 years ago almost. Although, quite frankly though, it's about the fact that I do like the designs, as I said before, like for instance about the fact that Knuckles is actually a powerhouse, and for whatever reason is that Knuckles now actually has fingers as opposed to the forms of the actual specific iconic gloves ever since in the good old days of certain Sonic games, including the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog Movie 2, and as well as the forms of Knuckles the series as well on Paramount Plus. But either way though,
A forest. This is more like it.
Quite peaceful.
well, it looks like we're going to be sticking around for not only play as Sonic, but as well as Tails as well from now on. Well, assuming of course about the fact that this game does have two-player co-op, but I will admit it though right away, Amy.
Oh, what's that exactly?
Well, I'm probably not going to activate the two-player mode for two reasons. For one, if you couldn't tell already, is about the fact that this game is pretty much unpolished as it is, meaning about the fact that not only does the graphics look a bit incredibly rough, but as well as from that, there are some technical issues here and there, which as a result, similar to the forms of how it does it in Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, this game is pretty much rushed in development. So as a result, this game has been made by not only Sega, but it's been developed by Big Red Button Entertainment, which, I don't suppose if you noticed, is almost like a kind of like a spiritual successor to the forms of Naughty Dog developers or something. Well, mind you, it's been about quite a long time since we actually researched upon this game, well, as it's mainly because I will have to admit it though right away, that, alongside with Game & Wario, this is by far my least favorite Wii U games I've ever played, if not the least favorite, but it's also one of the worst video games I've ever played, next to the forms of Super Monkey Ball Adventure, as well as Mega Man X6 for the PlayStation, and also same applies with Mega Man X7 for the PlayStation 2, well mind you about the fact that we haven't exactly got into those games just yet.
Yeah, I can honestly agree, because it's especially noticeable concerning for the fact that this is only exclusive to the Wii U, right?
Yeah, in some cases though, the most miserable failure, Wii U. Well, don't get me wrong, it did have some good highlights for the Wii U as far as I'm concerned, but I will admit it though right away, it did not sell very well compared to the forms of how it does it for the superior counterpart, which is of course the Nintendo Switch. And generally, the Nintendo Switch did somehow receive some very genuinely good Sonic games even to this day, especially concerning for the fact that after all, that Sonic Cross Shadow Generations is about to be coming up soon for the Nintendo Switch, alongside with multiple platforms as well. I'm not exactly sure about the forms of the Nintendo Switch successor as far as I'm concerned, but we shall see what happens in due time. So either way, so yeah, a few things we want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date is of course the 27th of May today, in some cases in 2024 today, so naturally speaking, that was about the fact that we've only got about exactly 5 days left now until we move on to the 6th month, which appears to be none other than June. So no matter what though, I'm still basically excited to know what specific game announcements they'll do bring for certain presentations as far as this is concerned. So either way though, because chances are though is about the fact I'm still basically curious to know which specific Nintendo Direct they'll bring us into for the sake of the forms of next month. But we still have no idea when is it going to be out as far as I'm aware. But then again though, we'll talk more about that if we continue proceedings for this game, unfortunately. Because as far as I'm aware, that this game not only does it usually stuck with the Wii U, but something tells me is about the fact that this game does not sell well alongside with the forms of Sonic Boom Shadow Crystal for the 3DS, which as a result, as I said before, both Sonic Boom Rise of Loic alongside with Shadow Crystal did came out in exactly the same day as each other, and usually relatively speaking now, I can't even believe by saying this is about the fact that I believe between these two games right here that I mentioned this earlier, both will gonna be eventually become 10 years old this year, which kind of think about it is quite a shock, especially concerning for the fact that I will say that Shadow Crystal is definitely the better game of the two. Well, at least it does have some issues, I will have to admit it though right away, and it's also worth noting for is about the fact that, well, as you can tell, we're gonna be still collecting some rings and also some collectibles.
You made it!
What happened to Metal?
Let's just say he won't be bothering us again. Unless he comes back.
What is this place? Don't touch that! I've got a bad feeling about this place.
Guys, check this out.
How is that possible? These ancient carvings look just like Sonic and Tails. What the heck are those things?
We fought some of them before.
What, without us? Oh, you know how much I like punching things.
Be my guest.
Right behind you.
Well, we've got some more robots to take care of, except this time you're forced to play as Knuckles, and occasionally though, that's Sonic, Tails, and Amy will fight alongside with you. So because of that though, yeah, let's get to the forms of the combat mechanics in terms of Sonic Boom Rise of Loic. And I will admit it though right away, unlike in Sonic Unleashed, alongside with the forms of Sonic Frontiers, yes, this also includes the Final Horizons DLC update for Sonic Frontiers, not only because of how the fact that with those two games, as I mentioned earlier, not only it's incredibly fast-paced, but it's also action-packed as well. Whilst in here though, not only it feels incredibly slow, but it's also about the fact that it's almost too simplistic, and not only that though, it's incredibly repetitive at the same time, which you probably already know what I mean, enjoying at some points whenever we get to the actual progressioning for this entire game. I mean, after all, this is just the beginning after all, so because of that though, I believe that pretty much does it for the combat mechanics in this game so far.
That was awesome. We can take these guys.
Guys, this way!
I swear to God, this scene is the most ridiculous and the stupidest thing ever. Like, why can't Metal Sonic just go fast? He's faster than Sonic. I mean, I might be a little bit nitpicking right there, but oh well.
Just as I thought.
Isn't that Shadow over there? I'm not exactly sure why he's there, Amy, but either way. We'll talk more about that until later, because for now we ended up in the next section in terms of... Now, for what I can gather, the first level we're going to be jumping right into throughout the whole game, by the way, is actually called Lyric's Tomb. So, at least as far as I can definitely tell, because we now ended up in this particular temple tomb, at least as far as I'm concerned. So, either way. Also, not to mention though, not only the lip syncing, as well as the in-game graphics, and finally, most notably, the performance, specifically with the frame rate, they are incredibly nasty for what I can gather, which is especially noticeable during the Forms of Mark speed sections as you saw from earlier, whereas it's generally because, as I said before, this game is not only unpolished, but it's very rushed as well, similar to Sonic 06, but at the very least, unlike in Sonic 06 though, they did manage to able to keep the forms of the 60 frames per second, specifically for the Xbox 360 version, as well as maybe a little bit on the PlayStation 3 version, despite the frame rate issues on that version of the game, but that's besides the point. So, anyway, so it looks like we're about to take control of Sonic from now on, because it looks like we're about to be doing some puzzles and what have you, by not only activating certain switches in order to able to progress, and not only that though, for what I can gather, there are some collectibles we can able to get, like some scrap metal, which we'll talk more about that during at some point on Wednesdays essentially, and not only that though, there are some crowns you can able to actually obtain if you do manage to able to accomplish certain stuff, which as a result involves around not only with puzzle solving, as well as the forms of some platforming every once in a while. So because of that though, yeah, relatively speaking, there's nothing else I can really say about the forms of this game in particular, and suffice to say though, is about the fact that when it comes to the forms of trying to get our hands on with the forms of a bunch of Sonic Boom games eventually at some point in the future, that, as I said before, we will get around onto the forms of the 3DS games during at some point in the next couple of years to come, ranging from 2025 alongside with 2026 respectively. So because of that though, yeah, there's nothing else I could really say about that, I guess. So, and also as far as I can gather, it is about the fact I believe that Daffy Duck did somehow manage to able to play this game one time, right? Well, that was back in Journey Evolves in 2019, by the way, Amy, because as far as I said this before, we were originally able to do a whole dedicated marathon of Let's Plays, as far as I'm aware, for the sake of the forms of Sonic Boom games, ranging from this game as far as the game we are currently playing through right now, alongside with the forms of Sonic Boom Shadow Crystal for the 3DS, and finally, most notably, Sonic Boom Fire and Ice, which both of those games in particular are released on the 3DS. And it seems kind of weird about the fact that when it comes to the forms of the Sonic Boom games, never gets released, not only on the Xbox systems, ranging from Xbox One, as well as Xbox Series X/S, because as far as I'm aware, that the Sonic Boom series only lasted for about 3 years. Like, it did somehow begin since in 2014, but then the series ended and Journey Evolves in 2017. That basically though is about the fact that when it comes to the Sonic Boom TV series, they somehow only got 2 seasons, so, and 2 of those seasons do manage to contain 52 episodes each, making a grand total of 104 episodes combined. So because of that though, yeah, it didn't last very long, didn't it? Especially concerning for the fact that for what I can gather, not only because the visuals look a bit not only simplistic, but it's also about the fact that sometimes though is about the fact that it is okay, I guess, when it comes to able to actually look back on Sonic Boom as it is, but either way. So, and also as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that we can able to interact with those bounce pads, which as a result, one of the most annoying dialogues they're able to actually brings us into at some point. Oh boy, you might see nothing yet. So, anyway, there's also another thing I want to classify for mentioning about this as well, I guess, is that, I don't suppose if you noticed, but recently, we have finished up everything for the sake of the forms of, well, let's just say, for instance, is about the fact that I somehow managed to finish up, Chapter 4 already, for the likes of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake so far, and currently I'm now on to the halfway point in terms of the story progression, and as far as I'm aware, that's basically I'm almost approaching on to, you know, Chapter 5. So because of that though, still I'm basically excited to able to actually go back onto Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake again, so just in case I can able to have myself an enjoyable time playing for that game so far, and relatively speaking, I was about the fact that I'm really looking forward to see, you know, some extra content that was not found in the original GameCube release. So, but that's besides the point. So, and also, if life can gather for this point, Sonic, is that, I don't suppose if you noticed, but basically though, is about the fact that we've only just got about, kind of think about it though, I think we've only got about exactly 1 month left until Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is going to be releasing on the Nintendo Switch, right? Well, yes, exactly, Amy, because, you know, it's a matter of the time about the fact that we can finally get a chance to able to do a Let's Play of Luigi's Mansion 2, but on the Switch version instead of the 3DS, but that's just mainly because no matter what though, that not only because of the forms of enhanced visuals, but you probably get the idea about that, so... Anyway, so it looks like we're about to be activating all 4 of the switches right here. So just in case we can able to actually get some progressioning around here. So, yeah, nothing else I can really say about that, I guess. I mean, relatively speaking though, as far as at this point in time, that certain puzzles are very simple and self-explanatory. And not only that though, is about the fact that every time whenever we managed able to complete something,
It's you and me.
obviously though, we have to switch between those different characters every once in a while. So either way, so let's get into the forms of the next playable character, which appears to be Amy. And as you can see, she can able to perform a triple jump apparently, which as a result, you can able to actually do a rhythm timing thing when it comes to doing certain jumps and what have you. And for some odd reason is about the fact that the actual Sonic's obstacle course are very identical to the ones we've already done already. So I'm guessing it's probably because it wants to, you know, try to utilize with the forms of the 2-player co-op aspect, but as far as like I said this before, we are probably not going to be focusing on 2-player co-op mode, because obviously though it does have some, a lot of issues for the 2-player mode, not only for the sake of the forms of the graphics look a bit worse, like textures are even blurrier, and the lighting effects has been removed completely, and even the frame rate is lowered even much further. Like, co-op makes the game worse in every single way imaginable. So because of that though, I can totally see why that this game is marketing towards kids, especially concerning for the fact that it's more likely for the target audience as far as I'm aware. I mean, basically though, we are playing the next Sonic game, as far as you can definitely already notice right from the start though, but it's more specifically with, like, you know, the worst Sonic games ever made existence for this presence as far as this is concerned. So because of that though, and then again though, we'll talk more about the forms of the actual specific stuff of this game and during at some point in the later days to come, and also not to mention though is about the fact that it will be you know what I'm talking about. It will be a lot more repetitive when it comes to forms of some more enemy encounters along the way. So basically though, that's as far as we can able to say about that, I guess. So anyways, speaking of something relates to Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake, I did somehow manage to find out that the actual specific resolution quality is actually felt a bit kind of weird, honestly. Like, for instance, when I played the game on docked mode, basically the actual resolution quality was actually in 900p as opposed to 1080p, which, don't get me wrong, it does still looks pretty nice though, but as far as playing the game on handheld mode, for whatever reason it was actually on 640p as opposed to 720p. But I will admit it though right away, it might take a bit of a while to get used to with the actual specific resolutions within two styles of play for the sake of the forms of the Nintendo Switch version of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door remake, but I still managed to enjoy it for what it is. So either way, speaking of which though, is about the fact that I've also noticed that thing, is that recently though, you can able to actually just try to get the reversible cover for the sake of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake, which not only do you get yourselves with the actual standard packaging version of that particular box art of the Switch version of the Thousand Year Door Switch Remake, but also you can able to switch over to the original GameCube box art based off on the English version, specifically if you're trying to able to actually access to My Nintendo Store, which I think is actually quite interesting, don't you think?
Yeah, exactly, especially concerning for the sake of nostalgia base. So, and as far as you did say this earlier, that's only on My Nintendo Store for the sake of trying to able to actually get those specific printing covers. So, the nostalgia is strong, as what it says anyway. So, anyways, let's get into the forms of Knuckles right here, and technically we've already played as him just briefly since in that particular combat as far as this is concerned, and basically though, as you can see, every time whenever you go into the forms of those specific red rocks as far as the wall is concerned, you can able to actually just climb onto walls, similar to the forms of how it does in the good old days of Sonic the Hedgehog games, since Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. So yeah, basically though is about the fact that this is the only method you can able to do when it comes to climbing things, and it's also very similar to the ones of how it does it in Sonic Frontiers for the sake of the Final Horizons DLC update. In fact, kind of think about it though, this game is basically, it's like a baby version of Sonic Frontiers, believe it or not. Not only because of its simplistic combat mechanics, but it's also about the fact that you can able to play, take control of not only with Sonic, as well as Tails, Knuckles, and Amy with that specific similar in structure, and not only that though, we are forced to able to actually just try to do specific puzzles and what have you. So, and not only that though, Sonic is about the fact that this game is basically based off from the Sonic Boom TV series. So, yeah, that's as far as I can try to able to explain about that. So, anyways, let's go ahead and keep on climbing, so just in case we can able to actually activate some even more switches, so just to ensure we can able to continue our progressioning here. So, anyway, I suppose there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well, that there was actually a game called Totally Spies Cyber Mission, has been confirmed to its release date, and as far as I'm aware, that game is going to be releasing exactly until the Halloween day, specifically on the 31st of October in this year. So, kind of strange, didn't it? Yeah, true, especially concerning for the fact that unlike in almost 5 years ago, they did somehow release Luigi's Mansion 3 in exactly the Halloween day, because obviously it makes sense, because obviously the Luigi's Mansion is almost like a Halloween themed kind of video game. So, anyway, so since we've actually done with 4 sections by the way, so this means we can now able to approach onto this specifically, this little room over there, so we can able to actually see what this is all about. So,
You see, guys, I told you I'd find the exit. No problem.
I don't think those doors were to keep us out. They were to keep that in. Let's get out of here. Oh, wait, I forgot. We can't.
Not cool, Sonic. You locked us in.
Locked us in? I was saving you.
We didn't need saving.
Yeah.
Guys, can we put a pin in this for a second?
You and I have unfinished business.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm pretty sure it's a bad thing. Now I'm convinced it's a bad thing. Ah!
1,000 years later and you're still predictable.
What's he talking about?
He dodged my spin attack. Nobody's ever done that before.
Actually, it's not exactly accurate for that line, because you see, what happened is that he didn't actually dodge it, he just blocked with his own ball-looking thingy, so as a result, that line does not make sense at all.
Yeah, Sonic, I can honestly agree, because obviously something tells me one of the writers thinks about the fact makes no sense to us.
Yeah, either way, and this is where we get ourselves the introduction into, without doubt, the most forgettable villains of all time, and that's what appears to be Lyric, because obviously he only appears in not one, but 2 games respectively. One on the Wii U, which is of course Rise of Lyric, and the other, which is on the 3DS, that's Shattered Crystal, which we'll talk more about that if we get around on doing Shattered Crystal, probably for next year or something.
Well, assuming, of course, about the fact that we still have to consider this a fact, but still.
Yeah, either way, so enough about that particular ridiculous line error, so let's just continue playing.
Rise, my warriors. We have a world to destroy. Now, let's see what 1,000 years in prison will do to you.
What just happened? Well, let's see. We discovered an ancient tomb, moved those mirror things around, and got steamrolled by a 1,000-year-old reptile. Did I leave anything out?
Yeah, you forgot the part where it was all Sonic's fault.
I was saving you.
Speaking of saving us, I almost have this thing figured out.
Oh yeah, remember I mentioned this earlier about the fact that we're going to be collecting those scrap metals, not just by default to trying to find abundance of treasure chests, but you can also obtain these scrap metals by simply defeating all these enemies right here, so that way we can able to use the scrap metal until whenever we get to the next section in this whole entire game, which then again we'll talk more about that during at some point on Wednesday. So for the most part though, we have to do with some more enemy encounters right here, so that pretty much does it from there.
We gotta stop that slithery psycho.
First, we gotta get out of here.
Tails, friendship bracelets? Now? Not exactly. I recalibrated the shackles into sort of energy beams.
Great work, buddy. Maybe we can use these things to find a way out.
Although despite we did somehow take care of all these enemies from this spot, well, actually as it turns out, we're not done with this yet.
And that's mainly because, Amy, is that we have to utilize with the main gimmick of this game, alongside with the forms of Sonic Boom, Shattered Crystal, and that's what appears to be the Inner Beam, where basically those about the fact that, I believe, in order to able to activate the Inner Beam, is that you have to press the A button, by the way, in order to able to actually grab enemies, and you can able to actually use the lasso, so that way you can able to toss certain enemies for specific, combos, and also trying to take care of some more enemies. And most notably, as you can tell, we somehow managed to able to knock down that particular statue, so that way we can able to actually grab onto that particular zip line while trying to utilize with the Inner Beam, and that way we have to dodge a lot of Lyric's attacks. And as a result, I get the strong feeling there was actually a crown in here somewhere. So because of that though, sometimes I will admit though right away, the controls in this particular Inner Beam section is actually way looser than I was expecting. Especially because considering for the fact that obviously though is that, like I said before, not only does this game feel a bit unpolished as it is, but as well as the fact that this game is awfully rushed as it is, similar to Sonic 06 basically. So anyway, so we've now come back into the Mark Speed section again, just like in the beginning portion of the game, potentially speaking though. I will have to admit it though, that this game will actually brings us a lot more Mark Speed sections compared to Sonic 06, because in Sonic 06, did manage to able to have about, I would say, 4 Mark Speed sections. Like, one of them is actually in Wave Ocean, one of them is in Crisis City, the other one is actually in Radical Train, and finally in Kingdom Valley. Whilst in here, though, there's gonna be an abundance of those Mark Speed sections, so just because, no matter what, though, we have to continuously running and stuff like that. So, yeah, never stop running as far as this is concerned.
Yeah, because obviously though, everyone else decides to run fast, including you, Sonic, so...
Anyway, so that pretty much does it for the first stage of the game, which appears to be Luric's Tomb. So now we ended up in, let's just say, a hub world, basically, or should I say, the first hub world in this game, which I'm not exactly sure what this hub world was actually called, by the way, because let me tell you, I do not know this game as much. So because of that, though, I guess there's nothing else I can really say about that, I guess.
Yeah, same here.
So I suppose we should probably end things off this point right here. So join us next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. Is that I think the next objective we're about to do right here is that we need to find Cliff somewhere in this hub world. So anyways, I'll see you guys and join at some point on Wednesday.
Later, fellas.